Oh, yeah, familiar.
Yeah, so you're looking at doing some.
Yeah, yeah, just one question. Second Saturday doesn't matter. Yeah.
Don't be jealous.
Yeah.
True. I told him.
Okay.
That's funny.
Or do you guys, are you gonna pass it out?
No, we'll just
Right.
whatever's best for you guys. I mean, I'll just take that.
I'm Angela. I'm an alcoholic, and it is an honor and privilege to introduce our speaker today, Tori. She gave me permission to spend about 10 minutes introducing her, so I'll do that. I originally was Tori's clinical instructor in nursing school. That's how we met. And then she later asked me to sponsor her. So we kind of give new meaning to when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And the big book promises that once we start working with others, life will take on a new meaning. And Tori absolutely has given that gift to me. Working with her has been absolutely amazing. Our kids are growing up together. I got to see her enter the world of the spirit, which was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And then I got to see her and be present for when she gave birth to her youngest son, Noah. She taught me vulnerability. Um, she's just taught me so much. She brought me in from a dry spell. I was out there in my dry alcoholic insanity, and Tori was the one who brought me back into the program. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not really sure who's helping who most of the time. Conveniently, we have this like really similar things happen at the same time. It's kind of a coincidence, and so we're able to support each other that way. And it's a special day today because it's Tori's first time at the podium telling her entire story. And she's an incredible woman. You know, she hasn't had the easiest time in sobriety, and you'll hear about that. But she's always using the program and leaning in to her higher power in this program. And she's just a testament to how it works. So come on up, Tori.
Hi everyone, I'm Tori. I'm an alcoholic. Thanks Stanley for asking me to speak today. Um, Deidre, congratulations on 7 months. I love you so much. Um, you have been just so supportive of me in my sobriety, and you're always there for me. Always. You text me every day to check in on me. Um, you were there when I brought Noah into the world, and you supported me through that period of postpartum when I was really vulnerable and broken. And so I really appreciate you, and I love you. Um, so like Angela said, this is my first time doing this, so I'm extremely nervous. I didn't sleep last night, and I made a bunch of notes and tried to organize them, and then I just got even more stressed out. So I don't know if this will make sense, but we'll see how it goes. My sobriety date is July 12th, 2023. Um, I grew up in a household where my mom was abused by my alcoholic father. Um, some of my earliest childhood memories are I would be playing with my mom in the living room, and I could kind of feel like her energy when she thought my dad might be coming home. And then he would come home and she would put me in my room, and I would just hear like yelling and screaming. And I vividly remember one time my dad like picked up the coffee table and threw it at the wall. Um, and I never saw him hit my mom, but I did see like black eyes. And I remember one time I heard her screaming outside. He had locked her out, and it was like there was so much snow, and there was just like blood in the snow. And Then my sister was born, and she was really sick. She was born with rheumatoid arthritis, and so she was in and out of the hospital all the time. And My parents were focused on her, and so I was usually with like other family members and not really knowing what was going on with my sister, just knowing that she was sick and needed my parents more than I did. Um, and then my parents got divorced finally, and my mom took me over to this person's house and was like, so the guy that's been raising you actually isn't your dad. This guy is your dad. And I was so confused. I thought that this guy was the reason my parents got divorced. And so I absolutely hated him. I was not kind to him. I was a very angry child. I mean, all I remember is that he was just like trying to buy my love, and he would just like give me money all the time and like give me these gifts, and I thought that I was supposed to like him, but I couldn't. And then my dad that raised me, still to this day is in denial about this other guy being my dad. And so I was never able to talk about that. And then I also recently found out that my biological dad was still doing drugs when I was over at his house, and that just makes it even more uncomfortable for me to think about. He wasn't a part of my life because he was addicted to meth, and when he got sober, he didn't really make an attempt to be a part of my life, and so I had a lot of resentment towards him for that. Um, my mom ended up losing custody of my sister and I, and she moved away out of state. And so I was just left with my dad, not my biological dad, the one that raised me, who's an alcoholic. And so there was a lot of fear in the household. He wasn't abusive towards my sister and I, but he was angry a lot, and scary. Um, so I don't really remember my first drink, but I remember I used to take vodka out of the bottles around the house and just put it into my Powerade or whatever I was drinking. Um, and then I really started drinking in like sixth grade. I was partying with my friend and her older brother's friends who were like 18, 19 years old. So that's really sketchy. Um, um, and then in eighth grade, I got busted at my first party. I have no idea how my dad found me. We were out in like Stevensville, I think. And my dad just showed up, and I was already wasted, but I remember he brought me home and my friend home, and her mom was on her way to get her, and she was outside in the yard like throwing up, and my dad was just like, "Well, what were you guys drinking?" And I was like, "I wasn't drinking. I didn't. She was." Um, and I don't know. After that, I wasn't really drinking a whole lot. I was just getting into a lot of trouble. like not coming home when I was supposed to be coming home. And then I started high school and still wasn't really drinking when I first started high school. And then I started hanging out with the party crowd. And I was like, oh my gosh, finally, like these people know how to have fun. And I drank every weekend, Friday and Saturday night, sometimes Sunday during the day. And my friend, her mom would buy us alcohol and let us have parties at her house. And the dad didn't know, so we'd have to like clean up and hide all the evidence by like 5 in the morning. And she said if we were to get caught, then no more parties. So of course we did that. We didn't get caught. I started getting MIPs. I think I had a total of 4. And 2 of them got dropped. My friend and I were on our way home from a party, and one of our friends was driving and he got pulled over and they breathalyzed all of us. And then the next day we had court, and the judge was like, do you know that you blew like twice the amount that your friend did? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, were you sick at all? And I was like, no. And she's like, okay, so that tells me that you've drank before. And then I got double the community service that my friend did. I honestly didn't really see myself living much past high school. I didn't have any dreams or goals or aspirations. All of my friends were talking about going to college, and I was just like, well, just make sure you invite me to the parties. I'll be around for that. And I had like, I didn't know it at the time, but I just had like this passive suicidal ideation all the time. Um, yeah, and I thought after high school, I'll probably just drink until I die. I don't really know. Um, so at one of these parties, I met a boy, of course, and his parents would buy him alcohol and let him party at their house. So I was like, okay, this is the perfect man for me. So we we started dating, and he had a sister, and so I would tell my dad like, oh, I'm staying with his sister tonight. And then we would all just party, and his parents ended up moving to Eureka, Montana, where they were from, and he stayed behind and lived with his aunt. But then he got um, kicked out of high school for skipping too many classes, and he had to move to Eureka with his family. And so like every other week I would go to Eureka to visit him, or he would come to Missoula. And the first time I ever went to Eureka, um we were having a party, and we hid like this entire bottle of Crown in the truck, and like just me and him would go and take shots out of it. And we finished the entire bottle, just us two. And then I don't remember why we started fighting, but it was the first time he ever put his hands on me. And he pushed me down, and I got back up, and then he just kept pushing me down. And it was like knocking the wind out of me. And then I was thinking to myself, like, this is what they talk about in health class. Like, this is what an abusive relationship is, I think. And then the next day I woke up and was like, oh, I mean, we were just drunk. It wasn't a big deal. He didn't mean to do that. So then pretty much every time we drank after that, he would either verbally abuse me or physically. And then it was Memorial Day weekend, and his family came down to Missoula to go camping, and then my family was camping. And so we were planning on staying like 2 nights with my family and then 2 nights with his family, and it was his brother's 18th birthday. So we were planning on getting drunk. His mom was making rocket fuel. I don't really know what it is besides Everclear, so I was really excited for that. So it was our last night, our last day at my dad's camp, and we were riding four-wheelers, and we got into an accident. My helmet flew off, and so I have really no recollection of this, but I woke up a day later at my mom's house. We were life flighted to St. Pat's, and they were concerned about like internal bleeding. And so I was supposed to have like an MRI and stuff, but they did a blood draw, and it turned out that I was pregnant, and I was 16 at this time. So I don't remember what happened, but my family has told me that like the nurse told me that I was pregnant, and then she said, we have to tell your parents. So my parents come in, and the nurse was like, remember, you have to tell your parents something. And I was like, what? I don't remember. And so she like whispered it in my ear, and I just like blurted out, I'm pregnant. And my mom was crying. My dad was very angry. And then I don't know whose idea this was, but I went into my boyfriend's hospital room, walked in, and just like announced that I was pregnant. And his family was there, his sister, his cousin, his aunt, like all these people. So everyone knew that I was pregnant except for myself, because I didn't remember. And so I wake up at my mom's house like a day later, and I had no idea what had happened. I just knew that like my body hurt, and I had like scrapes and bruises all over. And my mom was like, "Do you remember what they told you?" And I was like, "No, I don't remember anything." And she was like, "Well, they told you that you're pregnant." And I mean, I just started sobbing. Like I had no idea what I was gonna do. I was so scared. Um, and I knew that my dad was probably going to kick me out of the house. And so I stayed with my mom for a couple days, and then I went back to my dad's house, and sure enough, he kicked me out. He said that all I would ever be is a mom. That I wouldn't be anything else. I that my life was over basically. And so I had to move to Eureka with my boyfriend's family. And Eureka is like a really small, shitty town. Um, like there's nothing there. And so here I am, the new girl, and I'm also pregnant. And that was probably the most, like, I was so lonely in that time. I felt like I had no one, and like people were really mean to me. And I didn't have my family. I just had my boyfriend and his family. And they were pretty dysfunctional. Um so I dropped out of high school because I just couldn't. I would cry every day at school, and it was just super embarrassing, and I was like, I just can't do this anymore. So I dropped out of high school, and I was so severely depressed that I stayed in my bed for the rest of my pregnancy. I didn't do anything. I mean, I couldn't drink, and so I was just living in this depressive episode, and I was just so alone, and I just remember crying all the time and just thinking like, can't wait until my daughter's here because then I won't be so alone. And I wasn't really my boyfriend wasn't really abusing me at this time, but he also was just like not around. So I really was alone. Um I I had my daughter, and we lived with my boyfriend's parents, and so it was really easy for me to just like put her to bed and then go out and party because his parents were there. And so I did that, and eventually her dad told me like that he didn't love me anymore, and that he was like disgusted with me after I had our baby. And I was like stuck in this house where he didn't want to be with me, and he was like partying and bringing other girls around. And I eventually just called my mom and I said, I need you to come get me because I can't stay here anymore. And she did. She brought her little car, and I just put everything I could fit in there. And then I came back to Missoula, and I re-enrolled in high school, and I um, did both my junior and senior year in the same year so that I could graduate with my friends. And then, of course, my daughter's dad came back into my life because I was doing so well. And so he comes back into my life, and I get pregnant with my son. And this is like when the abuse got like really, really bad. Especially after I turned 21, because he wasn't quite 21 yet, and so I could go out and drink and he couldn't. And so usually I wouldn't even be able to get out the door to go drink. He made that really difficult. But then when I would come home, it was like I didn't know what I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Um I think it was after celebrating my 21st birthday. Yeah. He had his entire family come with me to celebrate my 21st birthday to keep an eye on me. And then I came home, passed out. My daughter was in bed with me. And I just remember waking up to him. He like punched me in the back a couple times, and I like couldn't breathe. And then he pulled me out of bed and like dragged me down the stairs. And then he went to work, and my mom came over, and I was like holding my son, and I had like this giant bruise down my side, and she saw it and was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, I fell down the stairs. I was like really drunk last night." And she was like, I mean, she knew that it wasn't that. And all she said was, if you want to leave, when you decide to leave, I will be here for you. And it took me another couple months to finally get the courage to leave. I actually decided to leave because I was holding my son one day, and his dad strangled me against the refrigerator, and I thought that I was gonna drop my son. And so after that, I don't know, something just clicked, and I was like, I have to get out of this relationship. So I did, and the abuse continued. I still would let him come around me to be around our kids, and he actually like he strangled me one time to the point where I thought that I was gonna die, and all I could think about at that moment was like my kids aren't gonna have a mom anymore. And then I lost consciousness, and then when I called the police, I mean, they were just like, well, he's not around, so we can't really do anything about it. I had to have like a medical examination. They said that like my throat could close up still after being strangled. I guess like the most dangerous time after being strangled is like 24 to 48 hours. Because your airway can still close, and it was just a really scary time, but I ended up getting an order of protection and for 10 years. And so luckily he's not really interested in being a parent to our children, and so I don't really have to deal with him. That's a blessing for me. Sucks for my kids, but I at this point I decided to go to nursing school because I knew that I would have to be raising these children by myself. And I moved in with my mom and started nursing school, and I made friends with this girl named Tawny, and um we were like the best of friends. We did everything together. She helped me with my kids. I picked her up for school every day. Um And then one day I was like, have you ever had a red beer? And she's like, no, I don't know what that is. So I was like, well, we should skip class today and go get one. And we did. And then that became like a thing. We would skip class quite often and go drink. And she ended up failing out of pre-nursing, and I got into nursing school, and our friendship kind of fizzled out. But she ended up passing away. I think I was about 4 months sober. She had a seizure and was on life support, and her family called me, and I got to make an amends to her before she died. That was my first amends I ever made. Um, um, and somehow I passed nursing school. I mean, I was drinking the whole time. I have no idea how I managed to pull that one off, but I'm very thankful that I did. Um, because I love being a nurse, and I have just like this stable career in order to support my children. And so very thankful for that. Um my last year of nursing school, I got into this relationship with this normie, and I was also in a relationship with my party boyfriend. So I had my normie boyfriend who I was hung out with during the week so that I could be normal during the week. And then I would party with my other boyfriend on the weekends. And my last year of nursing school was during COVID, and so we weren't getting drug tested. Um and so I stayed up all night. My first time ever doing cocaine, I stayed up all night, and then it was like 5 in the morning, and they were like, we need to smoke weed to like calm down. And I was like, well, I can't smoke weed because if I get drug tested, like that would stay in my system. So the cocaine was fine, not the weed. So um I ended up smoking weed that night. And then 3 days later, not kidding, I got a call that I needed to go take a drug test for nursing school. And I was freaking the fuck out. I was losing my mind. And then I was like, I don't want to drink too much water because that will be obvious, but I don't know what else to do. So anyways, I didn't fail my drug test somehow. So I got to stay in nursing school, but that was with my party boyfriend. And he I don't know what it was, but I just had like this gut feeling that if we were to be in a relationship, it would be really bad. Um, he had 2 kids and I had 2 kids. And anyways, he died from a drug overdose. And that is when my drinking changed. It got really dark. Just remember every time I would drink after that, I would just cry. And like that's all I could do. And then I would get frustrated because I'm like, the alcohol is supposed to make me feel better and it's not, it's making me feel worse. And then I started to get really suicidal. My normie boyfriend, I told him about Austin, and he was understanding, but at the same time, I think, it really caused him a lot of pain to have me grieving this person so much. I remember we went out one night, bunch of friends, my normie boyfriend and his friends, and it was just like I started a fight with everyone. I was fighting with his friends. I started a fight with my friends. I got home and started a fight with my neighbor. Um, Somewhere in the mix there were cops and I was fighting with the cops. Um, and I don't remember this. I do remember fighting with my neighbor, but barely. Um, and then I went inside and I was fighting with my boyfriend and he went into the room and I started taking my kids' pictures off the walls. And I put all of the pill bottles that I had like in a line. And behind, this is kind of funny, behind each one I had like a White Claw. So I could take the bottle of pills and then chase it with a White Claw. And so I was like, I downed the first bottle and I picked up the second one and I dropped it on the floor. And then my boyfriend came out and was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just taking my meds." And I didn't, I think he knew that I had taken more than I should have, but I didn't tell him how much I took. And so I went in and um, I was, I was like, I just got really cold. I was freezing. I could not get warm. I was like putting layers on and I just kind of curled up in a ball and I was like, okay, I just hope that I just don't wake up. I just don't want to wake up. And then I got up the next morning and I got a call from one of my patients that they needed me to change their catheter. So I was getting up and ready to go change this catheter. And my boyfriend was like, "You need to go to the emergency room." And so I did. And then I was admitted to the psych ward. And this doctor, who I absolutely love, Dr. Moonjal, he asked me what would have happened to my kids if I would have died. And I said, "I don't know. I didn't want to think about that. I couldn't think about that." And he said, "Well, do you want me to tell you what I think would have happened?" I was like, "Okay, sure." And he said, "Well, I think that your daughter would have, your kids would go with their dad and your daughter um, would find a man just like her dad. And your son would probably end up like his dad." And I don't know what it was, but that just broke me. And I was just like, I need to change something. And so I was there for 5 days and I just prayed and prayed and prayed. And I woke up one morning, I was like, I'm an alcoholic and I need to stop drinking. And that was that. It was just like I was set on that. And so when I left the psych ward, I called Angela and I met her for dinner and she took me to my first meeting. I asked her to be my sponsor. And then I would think I was like 3 months pregnant or 3 months sober. I actually got a job in the psych ward where I was. And I loved that job so much. I just felt like I could really relate with those people. Because I was there and I'm an alcoholic and I also have bipolar disorder. And so that was just like I loved going to work and I worked with a lot of alcoholics and I usually wouldn't keep my anonymity. I won a Daisy Award, which is an award that patients can nominate nurses for. And I know exactly who it was. He was 39 years old, dying of liver cirrhosis. And he was in between the ICU and the psych ward for about 3 months. But I was the only person on the unit that could calm him down because I understood where he was at. And he nominated me for that award. I went back out. I had like 13 months of sobriety. And I went back out and things were so good in my life that I just thought there's no way I could really be an alcoholic if things can get this good. Like I think I can have alcohol too. And yeah, that was not the case. I was out for probably a month and a half, and it was awful. It was awful. And I was so suicidal. I I mean, my friends were like wouldn't leave my side because they knew that if they did, I would try to kill myself. Um yeah, I I always say that my kids came in my life to save my life because my daughter came into my life in high school when I didn't really have a plan for myself. And then my son was the reason that I left this abusive relationship. And um, there was this day, I think I was 3 days sober, and I was like, I can't do this. I was doing fine, and then just all of a sudden it was like, yeah, I can't do this. So my kids and I were leaving the river, and my dad's house was on our way home. And so I stopped at my dad's house. I went into the garage. I got a box cutter out of his toolbox. And then I went inside and I was like, Dad, I just need a minute. I need you to take my kids for me so I can just go for a drive and just like clear my head. And my dad was like, Are you sure you're okay? I'm like, Yeah, really, I'm fine. I just need a minute. And he was like, Okay. And I think I had like 10 benzos left in my car. So my plan was to just go up in the mountains, take the pills, and then like slit my wrist. And I went to get my daughter out of the car and I was like, You guys are just gonna go into Papa's for a little bit and I'll be back. And she was like, Mom, I just want to go home. And I don't, yeah, she said, Mom, I just want to go home. And so I don't know, I like snapped out of it and was like, what the fuck am I doing? So we went home and I got myself back in this program. And I am so thankful for this program. I'm so thankful for all of you. I'm thankful for my sponsor. Like she said, we usually are going through the same things or similar things at the same time. And it's so helpful because I can just call her and be like, what the fuck? And she's like, yeah, what the fuck? And we just get each other. And I'm really thankful for the meetings. They really help me to get out of my own head. I've been in my head a lot lately. Postpartum, I just had a baby 6 months ago and it's really fucking hard. And I'm trying to co-parent with a narcissist and that shit is impossible. And I've just been coming to meetings and I feel so much better. I just kind of like forget about what's going on in my life and I can just focus on recovery and unity and service. I got a service position, and that feels so great. I'm greeting and I just bring my baby with me and we just greet people going into the meeting and it just like fills my cup. I am working on my men's letters. I did a 4th step on my son's dad the other day. And like looking at my part, I was just like, wow, I am insane. Like that is it. That's all I need to know. But it's super helpful to be able to look at that and acknowledge that I am insane. I think that's all I have.